ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. Welcome to the 14th chapter of the Gita. 13th chapter of the Gita we saw is called Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. It is about the field and the knower of the field. And through the combination of these two, Kshetra and Kshetrajna. In that Kshetra is the Jada Vastu, Kshetrajna is the Chaitanya. Kshetra is Prakriti, Kshetrajna is Purusha. And we saw Kshetra Kshetrajna Sanyogad. It is by the combination of this Kshetra and Kshetrajna this whole Srishti is made. So this 14th chapter is to tell us how this Srishti is made by this combination. So if you see in the 13th chapter verse 21, it was said Purusha Prakriti-sthohi bhungte Prakriti Jan Gunan. Purusha enlivening the Prakriti as though becomes the enjoyer of the whole Prakriti. Karanam Guna Sangosya, and because of that Guna, connection to the Guna, identification with the Guna, Purusha goes through Sadasad Yoni Janmasu, many different yonis. So how the Gunas bind the Purusha? How a person can be liberated from that? What are the qualities of that person who is liberated from the three gunas? All that this 14th chapter will cover. So first purpose of this 14th chapter is to say how this Purusha and Prakriti, Kshetra and Kshetrajna come together and the Srishti happens. That is the first purpose. Second purpose also is to show very clearly that this Purusha and Prakriti both are dependent on the Supreme. In what sense? See here, Shankaracharya ji has written in the introduction of this 14th chapter, Ishvara Paratantra Yoho Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoho Jagat Karanatvam Natu Sankhyanamiva Swatantra Yoho. So Purusha and Prakriti, they both are from the supreme cause, the same infinite cause we call as Brahman, using the power of Maya, becomes Ishvara, becomes the creator, sustainer and destroyer of the whole creation. So this is what Vedanta says. Sankhya says, no, there is no Ishvara at all. Purusha and Prakriti are independent powers. In that also Sankhya says Purusha is subservient to Prakriti. Purusha functions through the Prakriti only, and Prakriti is superior than Purusha. And in that they are two separate powers and they don't believe in Ishvara at all. So Shankaracharya ji says here that to negate that false notion, this 14th chapter In the beginning part, Bhagavan will explain that. So that's the second purpose. Third purpose he says here is the cause why we see in this whole world so much of variety. If the ultimate cause is one, why is there so much variety in this Srishti? That is because of the three gunas. Now, identified with the three gunas, the individual has forgotten that my nature is consciousness. So, identifies with the body, with the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and goes through the cycle of birth and death, many lives, what we saw earlier, sadasadyoni janmasu. Goes into higher yonis, goes into lower yonis, comes back into manusha yoni, keeps going up and down. Why? Because Purusha has forgotten one's own true nature, that I am infinite consciousness, one has forgotten. Got identified with the gunas. So the word guna, this chapter is called Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Three gunas and their vibhaga, distinction. What are the three gunas? So guna here does not mean quality, value. Sometimes we say, sadguna, durguna. So this person has good qualities, this person has very bad qualities. So their guna means the qualities, the value system that they entertain. Here guna doesn't mean that. Here guna means the nature of Prakriti. And three aspects are there, sattva, rajas and tamas. And guna word also means a rope in one context, which binds. So these are the three by which Purusha, as though, is bound. Because of ignorance, one has forgotten that my nature is infinite consciousness. Got identified with Prakriti, and now he thinks or she thinks that I am this. So how these three gunas bind, that will be shown, and how to then get liberated from this cycle. So the cause of the variety is the gunas, the cause of bondage is the gunas. Then how to get detached from the gunas, transcend the three gunas, realize our true nature as consciousness, and then what are the qualities of that person who is gunatita. That's the purpose of this particular chapter. And this has many beautiful practical implications also. Sattva, rajas and tamas, their qualities will be described now in this 14th chapter. And then later on we see in the 17th and the 18th chapter the application of these three gunas in food, in tapasya, in dan, in the yajna. Like that it goes. Three types of happiness, three types of fortitude, three types of doer, three types of work, all that will come in 18th chapter. So how the gunas apply in our life and how one can gradually get out of the bondage of the gunas. That is this chapter. Now, Bhagwan starts this chapter. Arjun doesn't have any question. Bhagwan only starts this chapter. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Chaturdashodhyayah Shri Bhagavanuvacha Param Bhuya Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajñātvā Munayah Sarve Param Siddhimito Gataha. So Bhagavan says here, Param Bhuya Pravakshyami. Bhuya means again. Once again I will tell you what? Param, that which is supreme. What is that? Jnananam Jnanamuttamam. The best of all knowledge. Amongst all the knowledge, that knowledge which is the best, I am going to tell you that knowledge. Why? Yad Jnatva, having known that, Munaya Sarve, contemplative people, all of them, Param siddhim ito gataha. They have attained the supreme state of perfection, meaning transcended this empirical state. Why he says bhuyaha? Because earlier also he has said Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam. Many times he has explained the glory of this knowledge. But once again he says, Param Bhuya Pravakshami. Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam. Now here the word Jnananam, amongst all knowledge, the supreme knowledge is going to say. Which is this knowledge? The knowledge of the self. The word Jnana here is not about the qualities that were mentioned in the 13th chapter, Amanitvam, Adambhitvam, etc. They are not referring to the knowledge of rites, rituals which will lead to punya, which will lead to heaven. They are not talking about, Bhagavan is not talking about the knowledge of the world, objective knowledge, physics, chemistry, biology, all that. He is not talking about any of that. Amongst all this knowledge, which is the best knowledge? He says that Param Jnanam, Uttamam Jnanam, Jnananam. Amongst all knowledge, this supreme knowledge, which is the knowledge of the self, that I will tell you. Why is it called Param Jnanam? Because it deals with that which is the supreme. There is nothing greater than Brahman. There is nothing greater than infinite consciousness beyond space-time causation, which is unlimited, unbound, unborn, unchanging, imperishable. Nothing greater than that. So he says that knowledge, I will tell you again. Paravastu Vishayatvat Param. It is called Param because it is speaking about Paravastu, supreme. Vastu here does not mean thing, supreme reality. And where is that reality? That is our true nature. That's the best part of it. If it is some reality far away somewhere, okay, some reality, okay, why are we bothered about that again and again? How will it change my life? Knowing this will change my life fully. Purpose of life will be fulfilled when I know this. The feeling of loneliness, emptiness, insecurity gone when I realize this. Having gained this, nothing more remains to be gained. The supreme gain is this. In everything else, whatever I gain, I will still remain a finite entity. My problems will still be there. I will still be identified with the perishable. This is that knowing which one is liberated from the entire realm of sorrow, of finitude, of this destructible, perishable samsara, freed. One attains that Paramananda Sthiti. That's why it is supreme, Param. And Uttamam Jnanam. And it is only by knowing I will know this. Not by any amount of action, not by any amount of service, not by any amount of rituals. They all have a role to play to purify the mind. But I have to know this. With a sharp, subtle intellect and with a pure mind, when one contemplates, then this knowledge arises. It is not knowledge given verbal knowledge. It is not a knowledge of certain things. It is not knowledge which is just spoken. It is knowledge which is intuitive realization. That's why it is Uttamam Jnanam. And at the same time, it is Rahasyam. It is most secret because how many ever words one can know and one can tell and describe about the infinite consciousness. If the mind is not pure, if the intellect is not sharp, one will not realize. One may be even able to give big lectures, but one will not realize the truth. Why? Because it is only in the pure heart it will reveal. Because it's our own true nature. So he says, Param Jnanam, Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam Param Bhuya Pravakshami. Again I am telling you. Why? Because Arjun may have got confused by the previous chapter especially this Purusha and Prakriti. So how this Purusha and Prakriti come, to come together and bring forth the creation? In that, how Prakriti is subservient, Purusha is the independent entity, that confusion one has to clear. So Bhagavan thought maybe Arjun got confused, let me tell again. So bhuya pravakshami. Or sometimes out of love and compassion, one wants to say again. Because maybe Bhagavan thought that Arjun got it, but I don't know whether he still got it. His knowledge is so subtle. So whether he got it or didn't get it, chalo, once again I will tell. Out of compassion, Bhagavan says once again, Param bhuya pravakshami. And in a battlefield, which means what is the level of importance Bhagavan gives to this? This is really to understand Dharma Samsthapana, we have to understand this. Real Dharma Samsthapana happens in the heart of the people. Dharma Samsthapana is not outside. When we say, we celebrate Janmashtami tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and we say Bhagavan took avatar, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Every yuga I will be born to establish dharma. What is that dharma? It is not some external dharma out there. That's an expression of internal value system. To awaken the jiva to its own swarupa dharma is the real dharma samsthapana. We have come here in the human birth to know who am I. In my true nature, who am I? This body is one cover, is just one cloth. What is it covering? That has to be known. And when we come to realize that, we realize that this can't even cover that. This is such a small, insignificant thing. But we have made this only everything. And what is the truth enlivening this body? No idea of that. So real Dharma Samsthapana is the knowledge of this Swarupa Jnana. This is Jnananam Jnanamuttamam. This is Dharma Samsthapana. To realize that Swarupa of ours as Satchidananda, whatever we do, the duties that we follow, the value system that we follow, the sadhanas that we do, different paths that one follows, festivals that one celebrates, 4 ashrams that one goes through, 4 purusharthas one is seeking, all this is external expression of this dharma, Swarupa dharma. Who am I? That is Sanatan. That truth which is my true nature is Sanatan. And that dharma which helps me to realize that, that is Sanatan dharma. And that truth is eternal and in the hearts of all. We saw that, no? Sarva, in the 10th chapter, Bhagavan says that Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashaya Sthitaha. Aham Adischa Madhyam Cha Bhutanam Antameva Cha. He says, I am the Atma who is in the hearts of all the beings. To know that Atma is Dharma Samsthapana. I may do so many things to protect the Sanatan Dharma, but if I don't know who am I, Sanatan Dharma cannot be protected. The only way Sanatan Dharma will be protected is by realizing what is Sanatan. And for that I have to turn within. And yes, if there are attacks happening outside, I must protect as per my role, as per my duty, as per my temperament, no doubt. But real Dharma Samsthapana is not by converting people, by starting a new Dharma. No, it is by realizing my nature as infinite consciousness. Jiva Jagat Jagadishwara. The Aikya of this, when one understands, that is Dharma Samsthapana. The war, Mahabharat war, is for what? It is not for land. It is not for property. It is not for revenge. It is to defeat the adharmic forces so that people are able to live dharma properly, do their duties well, follow their dharma in terms of the rites, rituals, the spiritual path, etc., to realize their own true nature, to live selflessly, to live with love and compassion, to live in harmony with nature, in harmony with the beings around. That is Sanatan Dharma. That is Dharma Samsthapana. So if there are dharmic forces which are destroying this dharma, dharma is that vision of oneness that unites every one of us. Bhagwan takes form to establish that vision of oneness. And that's why here, when he says that Param Bhuya Pravakshami, again I will tell you this. And which is also to make us understand that Gita is a moksha shastra. It is not a dharma shastra alone. It is not just to tell us do your duty. Many people think like that. What is the purpose of Gita? Do your duty. Gita tells us do your duty. Yes, if you take that statement to its depth, do the duty first towards yourself by knowing who you are. If I don't know who I am in my true nature, I will only be miserable myself and create misery in the world outside. Before I do anything else, I have to spend time for myself to know who am I. So even in a day, when I begin the day, I should spend time. Prabhate Atma Jagaranam Kuryat. Remember Bhagwan, remember Atma first. As soon as one wakes up, this is my true nature. I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. Shankaracharya ji wrote so nicely, those three verses. Prata smarami hridi sansfurad atmatattvam Satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam Yat swapna jagara sushuptam avaiti nityam Tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sanghaha. Three verses like that are there. So nice. Essence of Vedanta is in that. Wake up in the morning, chant these three verses, remind yourself, I am Brahman. At one level we say Karagre Vasate Lakshmi Karamule Saraswati Karamadhye tu Govinda Prabhate Karadarshanam. No doubt. Wonderful verse. To tell us that in my hands I have the power to attain wealth, I have the power to attain knowledge, I have the power to surrender to the divine. May I make the best of the day today. No doubt one can do that. But as one evolves, then one comes to realize that all this effort is for what? To know who am I. So contemplate, begin the day with Atma Chintanam. Pratasmarami hridi sansfurad Atma Tattvam. Where is that Atma? Not somewhere out there. It is here. That is the Jnanam Uttamam. Param Jnanam in my heart. That's why he says here, Yad Jnatva, having known. Known where? In the heart. As the self. Pratasmaram Hridi Sansfurad Atma Tattvam Satchit Sukham Paramahamsa Gatim Turiyam. It is the nature of Satchit Ananda. Word Sukha is used here. Satchit Sukham. Sachidananda is our Swarup. And great Paramahamsas who have renounced the body identification, they are reveling in that state. It is the fourth state of consciousness, Turiyam, which is the base of the three. It is not something separate. Swapna Jagara Sushuptam Avaiti. It is there when the Swapna, Sushupti and Jagrat also is there. It is there even when they are not there. Tad Brahma. See, that first shloka only tells us you are Brahman. Atma Tattvam and Brahma is united. One. That Atma of yours is the Atma of everyone. That is Brahman. It is not different. That is vision of oneness. That is Jnanam Uttamam. That is Yajñatva. That is Munayaha Sarve. Such contemplative people. This I explained earlier also. The word Muni, the word Muni does not mean somebody who is, moon is connected to the mind, and so one who is moody is a Muni. No. Muni means contemplative one, whose mind has become peaceful, whose intellect is contemplative. That person is called Muni. Manana Shilavan Munihi who is reflective, contemplative is Muni, and Munehe Bhavam Maunam, whose mind has become peaceful. No agitation in the mind. Steadily one is able to contemplate. If one says Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, mind remains in that. Mind is not running here and there. One is able to lift, stay there. That is person called Muni. So this Muni comes to know this and attains supreme freedom. Param Siddhimito Gataha. So when in the morning one wakes up and one says, Tad Brahma Nishkalamaham, I am that partless Brahman. Kala means part, Nishkala, no part. I am that partless Brahman which has no divisions. I am not this body. This body has many parts. Mind also has, intellect also has. Brahman doesn't have any parts. So, Tad Brahmanishkalamaham, Nacha Bhuta Sangha. I am not this collection of five elements. Panchamahabhutas, they are Prakriti, they are Jadavastu. Okay, they are there. But now I have forgotten that. Now I think I am this Prakriti. So Bhagavan says, no, 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 I am again telling you that knowledge by which you will become free from this false identification. Nacha Bhuta Sangha, this, you are not this. Just imagine, the day begins with that. Atma Chintanam. If Atma Chintan is difficult, then do Bhagavad Chintan. Think of your Bhagavan. There are Pratasmarana shlokas for every deity. Shivji, we have Pratasmarami Bhavabhiti Haram Suresham. Like that. So, remember Bhagavan and surrender. Or remember the Atma Tattva. This human life is meant for that. Every single day, remind yourself, I am Brahman. We should tell ourselves that. I am that infinite consciousness. Beginning the day with that, through the day keep saying Aham Brahmasmi or whatever helps you, Shivoham, Soham, anything. End the day also with that. I am that infinite consciousness. Boss, that's it. How I am that infinite consciousness, that is what this whole knowledge is all about. Once I know logically, then I have to make my mind live according to that, not feeding the false identification. So that's why this Bhagavan says here, Param Bhuya Pravakshami. Again, I will tell you this supreme knowledge, gaining which, knowing which, great munis, reflective people, meaning Bhagavan is telling us we should become muni. Our mind should be contemplative, mind should be quiet. Is my work leading me to that? Are my relationships leading me to that? Am I able to feel that yes, I have evolved to become more sattvic? Compared to last year, I am more sattvic this year. Compared to last year, I have much more clarity about who am I this year. Compared to last year, I am able to serve more selflessly. I have more bhakti for Bhagavan. My ego has reduced. Then I am progressing. That is true celebration of Janmashtami. Krishna Janma has to happen in our heart. And before that Krishna Janma happens, 6 siblings are destroyed. Mother Devaki represents that mind which is fully surrendered to Bhagavan. Jo Devaki ho gayi wo Devaki. And Vasudev represents the sharp, subtle intellect. So have I given up Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya? Have these reduced? Then Bhagavan will be born to us. That is Dharma Samsthapana. If Bhagavan is born in each one's heart, Atmagnan one realizes, Brahmagnan one is pursuing and one realizes that there is only one Brahman. That is really Dharma Samsthapana. Because everything else is perishable. How much can externally one enforce certain rites, rituals, rules, it will not sustain. Over a period of time, it will dissolve, it will get destroyed. That which is beyond time is Sanatan, which is beyond space is Sanatan, beyond object is Sanatan. That is Brahman. So, Bhagwan gives this out of compassion. This is the purpose of his avatar also, and this is the purpose of our Punarjanma also. How interesting it is, no? Bhagwan's avatar happens for Dharma Samsthapana. Our Punarjanma also happens because of that only. In fact, Bhagwan's avatar happens for ending our Punarjanma. How interesting. Bhagwan, who is unborn, takes up birth so that you and I can go out of the cycle of birth and death. We don't want to go out of cycle of birth and death. We want Bhagwan to keep coming again and again in the cycle of birth and death. That is Jiva's duragraha, Jiva's immaturity, also one can say. Bhagwan, out of his compassion, keeps on coming, yuge yuge. So, how nice. Bhagwan's Janma, Bhagwan's avatar and our Punarjanma, both are for the same purpose. And till we don't realize, our Punarjanma will keep happening and Bhagwan also will keep coming to guide us. Why is to trouble Bhagwan so much? Why should he keep coming again and again? Realize fast. So Bhagwan, out of compassion, tells Arjun, Chalo, once more I will tell you. And the best part is, after this whole thing, Arjun is ready, at the end of the Gita, he says, yes, yes, I am ready. He takes up the bow and arrow and he says, Karishye Vachanam Tava. He goes ahead, fights and wins the war. At the end of the war, he tells Bhagwan, Bhagwan, in the beginning of the war, now you had told something. That knowledge what you gave now was very nice. But I forgot. Can you please tell that knowledge again? So that Anugita is there at the end. After the war. Again, Bhagwan repeats this knowledge. Which means to say what? As a Jiva, however many times we are told, we forget only. Again, we get involved in some work, something, we forget who we are. Again, we have to we have to be reminded. And Bhagwan is doing out of compassion. So here when he says Param Bhuya Pravakshami, that's what it means. Now, having said this, he starts explaining. Second verse, he says that when he says, Param Siddhimito Gataha, they will attain the supreme, then what is that supreme that he is elaborating here? Idam jnanamupashritya mama sadharmyamagataha sarge pinopajayante pralayena vyathanti cha. So Bhagavan says here, idam jnanam upashritya. Resorting to this knowledge, what will happen? Param Siddhim was said earlier. What is that Param Siddhim? Will they get some special power, siddhis, walk on water, pass through fire being unaffected, fly in the sky, read the minds of people, teleportation? Bhagwan says, Mama sadharmyam agataha. They will be one with me. Mama sadharmyam agataha. Those devotees who realize this, intuitively they realize. What will they realize? That the self in me is that infinite consciousness which is the cause of the whole Srishti, and even beyond that, it is that which is unborn. So there is no Srishti in it. That final realization this Jiva will attain. Mama sadharmyam agataha. And he gives in plural, meaning these Jivas, they will attain that. Who are they? Munayaha. Na? Earlier it was said Munayaha, those people who are contemplative, who are quiet. And what is that state? If, okay, Bhagwan, if I be one with you, then what will happen? Sargepi na upajayante. When the creation happens, they are not born again. Pralayena vyathanti cha. At the time of dissolution, they don't feel the grief. Meaning they don't grieve at the time of death. They are not reborn again. Which means this is the ultimate Jivan Mukti, which is not going to some loka, because some people interpret it like that. Mama sadharmyam agata means sayujya mukti, where the jiva will go to that loka and attain the qualities like Bhagavan. No, this is not that sayujya mukti. This is sadyojata. This is the person has realized oneness. Meaning jiva bhava is dissolved. It's like that salt doll going into the ocean to measure the depth of the ocean, doesn't come back. That's why Bhagavan says, Yad gatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Having gone where one never returns from there. That is my supreme abode. Oh, Bapre, Swamiji, we will not return. Yes, we will not return. Why do we want to come back to this realm of ignorance and sorrow and suffering and misery? And if we look around the world, we are just in the beginning of Kali Yuga and already so many difficult things are happening. So much pain, sorrow, misery is all there everywhere. As the time passes, so much more is going to happen. And for what joy one want to coming back? One wants to come back here. For what? If somebody wants to come back, come back. Bhagwan is saying, if you come to me, then I will not send you back. Why? Which parent will send the jiva into sorrow and suffering? No, no, but Bhagwan already sent us. We have come by our karma only. Bhagwan is calling us, come back, come back. I am waiting for you, come. But we are not going. So Bhagavan says, Mama sadharmya agataha. Idam jnanam upashritya. If you want oneness with Bhagavan, resort to this knowledge. That's the only way. Jnani naivatu kaivalyam. Otherwise, in any other form of mukti, one will again come back. It's only delayed time. Go to Swarga, Kshine Punya Martya Lokam Vishanti. Go to any loka of Bhagavan, from there also we will come back. Unless Bhagavan blesses the jiva with Atmagyan there, then that jiva is realized, but that jiva also should want that. Bhagavan gives satsang, Bhagavan gives many opportunities for the jiva to realize oneness. But the jiva should want that absolute oneness. If the jiva says, no, no, I will always be your servant, Bhagavan says, tathastu, be the servant. Remain there in the loka. At some point when the jiva realizes that now I want to be one with Bhagavan, then Bhagavan says, okay, he will make arrangements to give this knowledge. So, idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha. So, mama sadharmyam means that Shankaracharya has written here that mama parameshwarasya sadharmyam mat swarupatam. Swarupatam agataha. Not loka. Swarupa is Sachidananda. They will attain to that same truth. So they will realize oneness. Mama sadharmyam agataha. Sargepina upajayante. The byproduct of this is freedom from cycle of birth and death. You know, some people ask that question. What after realization? Chalo, okay, no birth and death. Then what will happen? That question only will disappear. Because that entity who is asking this question, no, that disappears. Because we are asking that as a jiva. Okay, now I wanted to get a job, I got a job. What next? Now I want promotion. Okay, I got now. What next? Now I want to get married. Got married. What next? So that what next goes on coming. So we ask the same question for realization also. What after realization? What next? Are realization is param, na? That's what was said. There's nothing greater than this because it's infinite. This question gone. As long as the entity Mr. So and so is there, it will feel limited. It will keep wanting something or the other. That entity only is dissolved. Question gone. So This freedom from birth and death, if one says, that's a byproduct of this. That's not really mukti. Mukti is to realize that my nature is Sachidanand, my nature was Sachidanand, my nature will be Sachidanand. There is no time, there is no space, there is no causation, there is no srishti. There's only one truth, Brahman. That's it. That is Sachidanand. That is the ultimate state. We may say, oh, it looks so dull, boring. Appears like that in the beginning. Because that vasana for the samsara is there. When one understands, there is no joy in this. This is temporary. This is perishable. In fact, that is a cause of sorrow. Bhagavan said, Dukhalayam ashashvatam. This is our abode of sorrow. Then one will say, oh, ho, ho, where have I come? Why do I want to come again? Realize, mama sadharmyam agataha. Realize oneness with Bhagavan. Realize consciousness. So now that is this shloka. So the first two verses are about the importance of self-knowledge, what it will do, how it fulfills our most basic fundamental demand for supreme happiness and complete freedom from sorrow and fear, and how it will happen by realizing oneness with the Supreme. So these two verses are about that, and the result of that is freedom from cycle of birth and death. Now he explains how the union of the Kshetra and Kshetrajna, or the Purusha and Prakriti, brings forth this whole Srishti. Third shloka. Mama yonirmahad brahma tasmin garbham dadhamyaham sambhava sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. He says, Mama yonihi mahad brahma. My yoni, my womb is this Mahat Brahma. Please remember here the word Brahma in this context means Prakriti. This is why it is important to study the scripture following the commentaries of great masters. Otherwise we say, okay, Brahman means infinite consciousness, changeless, nameless, formless, attributeless, beyond time, space, causation, that is Brahman. Here it is said, my womb is Brahman. Acha. See now Prakriti is saying that Brahman is its womb. Purusha is its womb. Arey bhai sahab. Full confusion. Mama yonir Mahat Brahma. Then why it is called Brahma? Because that Mahat Tattva, which is this Moola Prakriti, which is the source of the whole Srishti, is dependent on Brahman. Without that it will not function. Like the power of speaking is right now residing in me. I am the locus of that. Power of listening is residing in you. The power resides in its locus. The entity in whom the power is always greater than the power. The entity can use it, not use it, manifest it, not manifest it. Power doesn't lie independent. Power lies in its locus. Power is inert. The user of it is the sentient entity. So in that same way, when he says here, Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma, that Mahat Brahma means Prakriti. Prakriti is the womb. The whole Srishti comes from Prakriti. Tasmin Garbham Dadhamyaham. In that womb I place the seed. We will see what that means. First I am just saying the literal meaning. Tasmin Garbham Dadhamyaham. Sambhava Sarva Bhutanam. Because of these two, the seed which is placed in the womb, the whole Srishti manifests. All the beings. After this, the beings are born. Naturally, that has to happen. Then only, the father places the seed in the womb of the mother. Then only the child will be born. So this whole Srishti, from where it came, we see two principles in the whole Srishti. There is Jada also, there is Chetan also. There is inert, there is sentient. So that sentient enlivening that which is inert, then the srishti happens. Here it is in the uh, terminology of the womb and the seed. So Bhagavan says here that my womb is the Mahat Brahma. Mama svabhutam madiyam maya trigunaatmika prakritihi yonihi sarvabhutanam karanam. सर्वकार्येभ्य महत्वात् कारणत्वात् बृहणत्वाच्च महद् ब्रह्म इति योनिः एव विशिष्यते. This is why Shankaracharya ji explains that this Mahad Brahma means this Prakriti, Trigunatmika Prakriti. And why it is called Brahma? Because it is that which will be nurturing, nourishing, bharanacha, and it is huge. Brihanatvacha. See, the Srishti itself is so huge, the cause of it, Prakriti, will be much more, no? Think about it. If 20 pots and pitchers are made, mud must be so much more from which the 20 pots and pitchers are made. So that Prakriti which is mighty, because it is the power of Brahman only, and has three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tama. That is what we'll explain further. But he says here, Madhya Maya, that Maya or Prakriti, they mean the same. Mahat, Maya, Prakriti, they all mean the same in this context. And it is mine, Mama Maya. It is not an independent power. How Sankhya says that Prakriti is independent, Purusha is independent. No, no. It is Maya, which is Brahman's Maya, Brahman's power. So he says, Mama Swabhuta Madhya Maya, Trigunatmika. This Maya has three gunas. So Maya and Prakriti, its nature is Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. If you remove Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, there is no separate Prakriti. Don't get confused that from Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas are born. No, no. Because ahead one shloka, it will come fifth shloka, Prakriti Sambhavaha. No, they are not born from Prakriti. They are nature of Prakriti. That's why he says here, Madhya Maya Trigunatmika. Atmika means nature. Prakriti is of the nature of three gunas. Trigunatmika Prakritihi. You should never forget that. In Tattva Bodh, the definition comes. आ गया Tattva Bodh. In almost every lecture of mine, somewhere Tattva Bodh will land up. And I keep saying that because so many people don't study Tattva Bodh. Even if they study, they don't master it. Even if they study properly, they don't remember it. Then they get confused. So there also the definition is what? Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. Brahmashraya Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. So it is Brahmashraya, it is not independent power. Same way here he says, Mama Maya, Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma. So this womb is the Prakriti. And it is called Mahat because it is mighty. It is called Brahman because it is infinite. Prakriti also is power of Maya, is power of Brahman only. It is infinite and it is the nurturing factor which takes care of the whole Srishti. So, Mahat Brahma. Now, Tasmin, in that Prakriti, Hiranyagarbhajam Manaha Bijam. When it is said Brahman reflecting with Prakriti or Brahman impregnates this Prakriti, it means that Brahman only becomes that Hiranyagarbha, the total mind. Vedant, those of you who have studied properly, you know that the total causal body is called Ishvara, total subtle body is called Hiranyagarbha, and total gross bodies are called Virat. So all the gross bodies of the Jivas put together is called Virat. So this whole Srishti is the Virat Rupa Bhagavan only. which is the gross form. That in its subtle form is called the total mind. All the subtle bodies are connected together, like how gross bodies are connected together. That is called Virat. That consciousness is called Virata. Remember, all gross bodies put together, the consciousness enlivening all the gross bodies put together, that consciousness is called Virat. Consciousness identified with all the subtle bodies put together, that is called as Hiranyagarbha, the total mind. So if every jiva has violence in their mind, in the Srishti there will be only violence. Because the total mind is like that, all individuals put together. Why is it in Satyuga that people are living more peacefully? Because their minds are more sattvic. In Kali Yuga, the mind is more cunning, malicious, manipulative. So then there is more and more of stress, worry, tension, anxiety, sorrow. Because the majority minds are like that. So that total mind is called Hiranyagarbha. And the cause of the gross is the subtle, the cause of subtle is the causal. So the total causal body is called Ishvara. Now, one thing we should remember here is Ishvara, Hiranyagarbha, and Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Ishvara. They are not bound by only the. They are not only the summation of the parts. They are much more than the parts. But parts are one aspect of it. Like ocean is not a collection of all waves. Waves are a very small part of the ocean. Ocean is much more than that. So that infinite consciousness, using its power of Maya, becomes Ishvara, the total causal body, which further manifests as the Hiranyagarbha. So he says here, Hiranyagarbha Janmanaha Bijam. That Hiranyagarbha is the total mind which you and I can connect with, which is what we can understand, which further manifests as the physical bodies. Like how in our mind there are thoughts, emotions, feelings, all this. There is a body. Through that body, there is a mind which is functioning. And why is the mind of that particular type? Because of its vasana. So that causal body in the individual, avidya and vasanas, and then this subtle body, which has thoughts, emotions, desires, all these, and then the gross body through which actions happen. Same thing apply in the Srishti. So he says that the seed of Hiranyagarbha, he places the seed of Hiranyagarbha, which is Ishvara. So Brahman using power of Maya becomes Ishvara. Brahman impregnates Maya, and that is Ishvara. That Ishvara is the seed of this Hiranyagarbha, the total mind. In different ways we call as Hiranyagarbha means golden womb. So the whole Srishti as though is one Brahmanda we say, no? It is one, like as though it's some like egg under, no? Brahmanda. Fertilized concept, what is that? Conception has happened. Now Brahman using power of Maya became Ishvara, which is the seed of Hiranyagarbha. So Tasmin Garbham Dadhamyaham means that. And that Hiranyagarbha, that which is that Ishvara, which is the seed from where that Hiranyagarbha appears, that Hiranyagarbha becomes the cause of the whole physical world then. So like how the thoughts, vasanas, manifest as desire in the buddhi and thoughts in the mind, which further manifest as action. Like that, he says, Sarva Bhuta Janma Karanam Bijam. It is the seed of the birth of all the beings, is the Hiranyagarbha, the total mind. Dadhami Nikshipami. I place that seed. Tasmin Garbham Dadhamyaham. Sambhava Sarva Bhutanam. And then what happens? Because of ignorance, one forgets that I am that infinite consciousness, got identified with Prakriti and then got identified with further one body, And now I'm thinking I am one little Jiva. I am not that Jiva. I am that Brahman. So he says here that Kshetra Kshetrajna Prakriti Dvaya Shaktiman Ishvaraha. This Ishvara is endowed with both these Kshetra and Kshetrajna. They are because of Ishvara. That's what I said in the beginning, that this chapter is to explain to us this. Now, please think about this. Why this is important to know? When we go by the scientific theory of creation, it is only talking about matter. There is no explanation about consciousness there. Maximum they say matter in a particular combination gives rise to consciousness. Otherwise, the whole thing is only matter. You think about the creation theory in Sanatan Dharma. To us, it appears very weird, and we say this is so primitive. Consciousness identified with Brahman becomes Ishvara, then that Ishvara becomes Hiranyagarbha, then from Hiranyagarbha, all the beings are coming out. What is all this? We are more scientific, Swamiji. Big Bang happened. From there, this is how the time, space all expanded, and then this collisions happened between the whatever galaxies, and then this iron was created, and all that. So many things one will say in science. Then the human bodies were formed, and it took billion years, and these gases were cooled down, and then this earth formed, and then this earth formed, and after some time water came on this, and then slowly that became little land also. And this whole theory of evolution, one can say all that. But remember, that is only telling about the gross aspect of Srishti. From where did this come? There is no answer for that. What is the cause? Why did that happen? No answer. So only what is perceptible, if I believe in, then it is very limited. That which is gross has a subtle cause. That which is gross and subtle has a causal cause, which is what Sanatana Dharma says. Which today finally science is saying thoda thoda in some parts, bits and pieces. They also say that now cycle of creation happens in expanding mode, contracting mode. So from a dot it will expand, and again it will contract, become a dot, again it will expand, and the cycles will go on. That our Mahatmas have said so many thousands of years back. Ki Srishti goes on in cycles. Satyug, Tretayug, Dwapar Kalyug. Again Pralay, again Satyug, Tretayug, Dwapar Kalyug. This will go on happening. And just like how things happen in the individual, they happen in the creation. Yat pinde tad brahmande, yad iha tad amutra, yad amutra tad anviha. Kathopanishad says so beautifully. What is here is happening there, what is there is happening here. Mrityo samrityum apnoti ya iha nana eva pashyati. One goes from death to death. If you see duality, meaning the individual and the total, they are one. They are not different. The view of science is I am separate, I am born in the creation, creation is going on, I will die one day. That's the view of science. So think about it. If you are saying I am very scientific, nothing wrong in being scientific and taking help of science, but don't limit yourself to only science. It is like saying I believe I am only gross body. Vedanta is saying, Arey, you are not gross body alone. You are, even as an individual, you are a combination of gross body, subtle body, causal body, and these three are enlivened by the self, and that is your true nature. Now think about it, which is more better to think about and identify with. So when one understands this, that this Srishti is sentiency, which is consciousness, enlivening this Prakriti, which becomes the cause of the whole Srishti, Ishvara. That Ishvara further becomes Hiranyagarbha, the total mind, and which is why the connection between the individual and the total. At every single moment, we are connected to the infinite. There is no moment when we are not connected to the infinite. Through Virat, through Hiranyagarbha, through Ishvara, every single moment we are connected. Ishvara is in the hearts of all as consciousness. Ishvara, we are connected vasana wise. Our causal body is connected to the total causal body. Our subtle body is connected to the total subtle body. Our gross body is connected to the total gross body. When I don't understand this oneness, that is why I feel miserable, lonely. What loneliness? At every single moment I'm connected to the total. Which loneliness? Oh no, I'm very lonely, Swamiji. I am feeling left out, they all left me and went. One miserably cries after that. Attachment. Some jivas left you and went. So what? You are still connected to the total, you are still connected to everybody. Mentally, you are still connected. Today, that is easier to understand or not. People who are doing all this pranic healing and Reiki and all that and sending energy, and why? Minds are connected. Sitting here, you can heal somebody far away. How? Because minds are connected, pranas are connected, five elements are connected. Where there is ignorance is making this disconnect happen. Which is why he's saying here that avidya, kama, karma, upadhi, swarupa, anuvidhayinam, kshetram, kshetrajnam, kshetrena samyojayami iti artha. Because of ignorance, this kshetrajna, which is my nature as consciousness, I have forgotten. Now I am identifying with the kshetra, saying I am this one body, I am limited, I am a man, I am a woman. क्या करें स्वामी जी, ये पाप योनि में जन्म मिल गया. Arey, somebody may be saying that. Shastra is not telling us that. Some people are misinterpreting the Shastra, may be saying that. What is the Shastra telling us? Shastra is saying, Arey, you are Atma, you are not the body. So what about the physical? I mean, what man, what woman? Nothing. I am Brahman. Even if I say no, no, that is difficult to understand, then at least you understand that you are a jiva who is connected to Ishvara. The Jivatma is full time connected to that Hiranyagarbha, which is the total subtle body. And as subtle body, as a jiva, I have taken how many millions of births? So why am I attached to this one body? And why am I having fear of death of this one body? Arey, I have dropped hundreds of bodies in the past. In this life also I have dropped so many times. Just that I am not aware of it. Every few years, all the cells in the body, every drop of blood, everything gets changed. How many bodies we have already taken in this Janma only. But some identification is there, continuity we feel, so we feel this is one body. This is not one body. So why fear? If one understands very clearly that my nature is, even as a jiva, forget Atma, as a jiva also I have taken many forms, I will take many forms till I realize Brahman. If I have that clarity, then there is no problem. But I have forgotten that. I have forgotten my nature as Brahman. I have forgotten my nature even as a jiva. I have forgotten my connection to Ishvara, Hiranyagarbha and Virat. Now imagine how much one has fallen to identify with one little body and to then feel miserable. This is what it is. So Bhagavan, Shankaracharya is saying here this, that I bring about the union of the field with the field knower who is associated with the adjuncts of ignorance, desire and actions. And once identified with his ignorance, desire and karma, avidya, kama, karma, these are called three knots of the heart. That infinite which is in our heart is as though bound by these three knots. Ignorance of one's own true nature, it doesn't know that my nature is infinite. So it feels I am the finite, and then there are desires to feel fulfilled and complete. And to fulfill those desires, karma. For those karmas, one takes new bodies. So he says the birth of all beings from the origination of Hiranyagarbha proceeds from this casting of my seed. Now, Mama there means that Brahman, okay? Don't forget that Brahman, using power of Maya, has impregnated this Prakriti. Maya and Prakriti is same. So Brahman is impregnating Prakriti, becomes Ishvara, which then is the seed of Hiranyagarbha, and from Hiranyagarbha all the beings are born, and then the physical world of beings is born. One more shloka we will take, and this concludes this thought process. सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः अहं बीजप्रदः पिता. Sarvayonishu Kaunteya, in all the yonis, yoni here means species now. Please remember that. Species, here the word yoni means species. Earlier the word yoni meant prakriti. Now it means the expression of prakriti, which is species. Mama yonihi, sorry, Sarvayonishu Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, amongst in this all the yonis, in all the different wombs and species, Murtayah Sambhavantiyaha, the different forms. Murti here doesn't mean idol. Murti means form. So Murta means what is manifest, Amurta means what is unmanifest. So Murti is the manifest form of the infinite consciousness. Look at that word, such a lovely word it is. What is Murti? That which is formless is manifesting in the form for you. What a beautiful word, no? It is. Think about that. How these people have used words. अरे मूर्ति पूजक है. अरे मूर्ति पूजक है मतलब क्या? It doesn't mean that we worship only some idol. We are worshipping the formless through the form. That formless is manifested in the form, and we are worshipping the form, and through that we are worshipping formless only. That's the meaning of the word murti. Amurta, unmanifest. Murta, manifest. So here murti does not mean idol. Here murti means the forms of all. So Shankaracharya has written here, which are these forms? So Deva, Pitra, Manushya, Pashu, Mriga, all these wombs and the forms that arise from these wombs. Sarvayonishu Kaunteya Murtaya Sambhavantiyaha. All these which spring up, of all of them, Tasam Brahma Mahadyonihi. Brahma here again, what is the meaning of the word Brahma here? Is Prakriti. Prakriti is the greatest. Because it is the cause. And Aham Bija Pradapita. Aham means that infinite consciousness which is Brahman. Aham. In this context, because Brahman is impregnating Prakriti, is become Ishvara. So he says, Aham Ishvaraha Bija Pradaha Pita. Garbhadhanasya Karta Pita. Garbhadhan Samskar. When we say no, in the Shodash Samskar, the first Samskar is Garbhadhan. Srishti itself started with Garbhadhan. Meaning what? Brahman impregnates Prakriti. Brahman and Prakriti come together. Ishvara is born. Ishvara, that is Ishvara. Hiranyagarbha, then the whole Srishti will happen. Hiranyagarbha is that golden egg. So the conception has happened. In our language, male, female coming together, conception has happened. That is the embryo, and from there the child will be. That is what the child will be born. In the womb, that conception has happened, and then the child will be born. Like that. So, what does this mean? The sentient cause of the universe is the main cause. Prakriti Jadavastu by itself. It is the infinite consciousness enlivening this Prakriti, the whole Srishti is there. Which means what? The whole Srishti is nothing but that divine. That's why we worship everything here. Why? Because all these are Murtaya Sambhavantiyaha. They all come from that source, which is what? Consciousness and matter coming together. So we see that same one truth in the hearts of all. And even the Prakriti we worship, even the Purusha we worship. Nature also we worship, elements also we worship, Prakriti as the Mula Prakriti also we worship, Ishvara we worship, Brahman also we worship, everything we worship, because there's only one truth appearing in so many different levels for us to understand. Now this is what, if these two verses we understand clearly, this is what Shivalinga also means. Shiva Tattva, the linga, the top part of the linga is supposed to be Chinmaya, is consciousness, and the yoni is the base. That is supposed to be Prakriti. The Chinmaya, which is consciousness, and the yoni coming together is the Shivalinga, which is the source of the whole Srishti. So when I am worshipping Shivalinga, I am remembering that Shiva Tattva, which is Chaitanya Swarupatma, which is impregnating this Prakriti, and that becomes the source of the whole Srishti. So I am worshipping the cause of the whole universe, consciousness. And I am worshipping Prakriti also. Both I am worshipping, Purusha and Prakriti, Shiva and Shakti. Now, if I don't understand that, and then people make us feel, Arey, that Shivalinga is a gross depiction of the carnal pleasure and the union between man and woman. What these Hindus are worshipping all this. And that is because they are ignorant. They don't know. We are not, worshipping that gross act. And even if you say that gross act, what is wrong in that act? That is what is responsible for the whole Srishti. In all species, the male and female have to unite, then only creation will go forward. If we think that is vulgar, then that is our problem. For us, it is Chinmaya, consciousness and Prakriti, and we worship the both. For us, both are important. If I worship only consciousness and I deny Prakriti, then I will say this is all not divine, I will destroy this world. That's what is happening in some philosophies, some religions. And if I say that there is no consciousness only, there is only Prakriti, this is anyway perishable. And from where consciousness comes in Prakriti then? Prakriti is by itself inert. So logically I can't explain. Both are very important for Srishti to go on. And this understanding that I am a worshipper of both Purusha and Prakriti, I respect both, revere both, that which is transcendental, that which is immanent, I worship both. 13th chapter also I spoke about it. Again I am saying this because we don't understand that clearly. That this combination is why it is most important and why both these have to be worshipped. Why do we have Ardhanarishwara Stotram? Ardhanarishwara Stotram has nothing to do with male and female gender coming together and creating a third gender. It is not at all about third gender. It is about the principle of Shakti and Shiva, Purusha and Prakriti coming together as the source of the whole Srishti. And we worship both. These two verses are that. And so in the Shiva Puran, if it is mentioned that the linga of Bhagavan Shiva fell and then the yoni was required to stabilize that linga, that is a depiction in a story form. That doesn't make it anything vulgar because we are not talking about ordinary human beings. We are talking about the cause of the whole creation, consciousness and the matter. They have to come together. Then only Srishti can happen, otherwise it cannot happen. So this is a beautiful aspect. Now, in this process, what has happened that Purusha has forgotten oneself, identified with the Prakriti, that consciousness because of ignorance has forgotten and now identified with one Jiva, is bound by the three qualities of the Prakriti. So that is what is said in the fifth one. Satvam rajas tama iti gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibadhnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. More of it I will take in the next class, the details of this, but this is the continuity of the thought. That infinite consciousness having forgotten itself, now this avyaya dehi, that infinite, imperishable indweller, which is consciousness, has forgotten itself, that as though, and now because of the identification with Prakriti, Sattvam, Rajas, Tama iti, three gunas, which are nature of Prakriti, it is identified with that. Nibadhnanti. Now, how these three gunas bind the jiva? So, from the level of consciousness, from the level of totality, I now have come to the level of individuality, identifying with one. I only am the whole cause of the universe. But I forgot that, and now I am identifying with one. The dream character is one character. But actually, are we the dream character? No. I am the dream creator and I am beyond the dream creator. I am the waker. But forgotten the totality. Now I am thinking of myself as one individuality. So, this is the next part of the chapter now, that how these three gunas bind and how to get out of these three gunas, the bondage of these three gunas. That we will take up further. But today we will stop here. If there are any questions, we will take it up after the Arati. So we thank all the Yajmans, the Mukhya Yajmans, Tarana ji, Kalpana ji, Paragwag, Bharat ji, the Gita Arti Yajmans for all the sessions, Rajan Saxena ji, Ajay Marchand ji, Hemant Kumar ji, Rashmi ji, Nalini ji, Jayashri ji, Ajay Kasotia ji, Vinita ji, Vinita Sanghi ji, Vipul ji, Jyotsna ji, Jolly ji, Vijaya ji, Ami and Anita ji. Dainik Yajman for today, Neelam Gupta ji, Kirit Vora ji, and Mamta Shah ji. And the Aarti Yajman for today is Ketan Bhuta ji and Nihar Oza ji. So we invoke Bhagwan's grace, Gurudev's blessings on all the Yajmans, their families, and everyone present here. May Bhagwan bless us with the supreme knowledge, gaining which life becomes fulfilled, gaining which one attains oneness with Bhagwan, and gaining which one realizes Param Ananda. Jai Shri Krishna.
ॐ जय भगवद्गीते मैया जय भगवद्गीते हरिय कमल विहारिणि सुन्दर सुपुनीते ॐ जय भगवद्गीते कर्म सुमर्म प्रकाशिनि कामासक्तिहरा तत्त्वज्ञान विकाशिनि विद्या ब्रह्मपरा ॐ जय भगवद्गीते निश्चल भक्ति विधायिनि निर्मल मलहारिणि शरण रहस्य प्रदायिनि सब विधि सुखकारी ॐ जय भगवद्गीते रागद्वेष विदारिणि कारिणि मोद सदा भवभयहारिणि तारिणि परमानन्दप्रदा ॐ जय भगवद्गीते आसुरभाव विनाशिनि नाशिनि तमरजनि दैवी सद्गुणदायिनि हरिरसिका सजनी ॐ जय भगवद्गीते समता त्याग सिखावनी हरिमुख की बानी सकल शास्त्र की स्वामिनी श्रुतियों की रानी ॐ जय भगवद्गीते दया सुधा बरसावनी मातु कृपा की जय हरि पर प्रेम दान कर अपनों कर ली जय मैया की जय।
बोलिए श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की जय, श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। Yes, if there are any questions, you can raise your hand and ask. All right, no questions. Thank you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.